Hello everybody, what's up? Here is update number 2 for the HIROS project. So today I'm gonna deep dive a little more into some topics I mentioned yesterday, and I might be a little all over the place again today, but I'll try to kind of rope it in and stay on topic. I'm trying to split up one topic between today and tomorrow. I figured this kind of agentic conversation can get long, and yesterday's video was 16 minutes, so let's see where we land today. But I think today is going to be more about how the Depin gives value to agents give value to the Depin, what it means to HIROS, and tomorrow will be all about a completely made up term that's called ZK agents or zero knowledge agents. That starts to get really interesting for me. So, but anyway, let me start at the beginning. So, why is an Ordinals project building a Depin, or what does a Depin have to do with our software, right? So, the Depin started as a need for HIROS and a kind of a greater future vision to produce assets generatively for all manner of project. As you know, and I don't have to get too deep into this because I think everybody knows, HIROS is a generative AI project. I built tools that make basically DMT mechanisms and UNAT mechanisms take center stage. So your inscription ID is the seed that directly drives the character's look and environment feel, and then we're drawing from all kinds of data points to further create that asset and traits and all kinds of character specs that lead into a story. So that's all there, right? That goes a bit deep. Talked about it a lot. And when I was building it, I realized this is kind of the future of assets and IP in such a way that we don't need to store this stuff. DMT really can be the producer of assets based on all of this non-arbitrary data, and we can generate all this every time you look at it, so that it doesn't need to be stored on a hard drive somewhere the way NFTs of old on Ethereum used to be. It's kind of like it's produced when required, when you need to look at it, when you need to use the asset, and then ceases to exist once you've closed the tab on your browser or whatever it is. And I said I wasn't going to get into it, but I'm getting into it. So there's something magical about that, because it can be assumed that just as storage prices have gone to zero, compute will also go to zero. Generative gets more efficient over time. All this adds up to a future where assets are born on chain. They don't need to be inscribed on chain. They can be very heavy assets, and we're talking about big videos and stuff. And this all, the recipe for it is on chain, immutable, has provenance, and yet it's created on the fly. And that's a really interesting future for a lot of reasons. But that was the initial seed for why we want a Depin. If we could wrap an economy around the GPUs with these special use cases, we get to have the ability kind of sooner than anybody, which I like, and we get to have it at a wholesale price. So I wouldn't bet on a Depin as a business if I was just betting on the price of GPU compute as a commodity, right? Like I said, it's a good time now for people who deal in compute, but that's probably not always going to be the case. It's really all about the applications, the use cases, the ecosystems you build on GPU compute. And it's just going to get better for the people who hold those keys later on. Okay, so there's that. But more and more, I see the Depin as a case of batteries included for all kinds of use cases, and like I mentioned, having that wholesale access to hardware can unlock many things. I'm focused on agents right now because it's going to be the next wave. I think there's two waves of AI that are still coming. This is this agentic use of existing models. Big tech has spent the money on creating these huge models, and there's a way into the models that can be high quality, low quality consumer entertainment, right? But a lot of use cases are going to come from the way agents work, and I talked a bit about that in the last video, and how specialized they can be. And one interesting thing I heard someone much smarter than I say is like, even Chat GPT-3, which a lot of people consider to be trash as a natural language chat bot type product, it's actually better than the newer Chat GPT versions when you put agents in front of it, which I just found pretty fascinating. And keep watching the space. I'll keep up on it. And also, side note, most devs don't even use OpenAI stuff. They all really like Claude. And I think that's a case of Claude coming in later with lessons learned by OpenAI. But anyway, the focus on agents here is one of the waves. There's going to be a focus on frontier data too. And I think that's a whole other topic. But those are the two waves that are in the future for AI. Our agents are special because they'll have wallets. Thanks to Benny, thanks to Track. We are going to spin up 21,000 agents, and that means also spinning up 21,000 wallets that can deal in ETH, deal in BTC. I'm looking at ways to deal with fiat. So this is really interesting, except we won't be alone here either. Wallets have been announced for Eliza and other platforms. So that'll exist also in the short term. But our differentiator is really going to be this confluence of the agents, the wallets, what I'm doing with small language models, and like dynamically doing something I'm calling RAG switching. Like that's all for efficiency. But then it also has access to the Gen AI tools. And Google and DeepMind from Google, they announced VO2 yesterday, which is amazing. Like the convergence is going to all live here. And then on top of that, having a Depin is it gives us some real good differentiators, like security. When we control our own network, be it decentralized, be it transparent, we get some stuff that we get some capabilities that nobody else is going to have. So that's what I'm going to get a bit more into today. I think it's interesting that Elon made news recently, like last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, with his 150,000 GPU supercomputer. And it's nice. It's a big round number, 150,000. But if you look at Ethereum's proof of work passed as a precedent, at its height, it had 14.2 million GPUs online. And that's a crazy number because that was all crowdsourced. That was all from miners who were partaking in an ecosystem, a crypto ecosystem. Even if they didn't care about crypto that much, there was such an enthusiast community around building your miners, making them efficient, squeezing every last bit of hash rate out of them. It's kind of a beautiful scene, and it all crashed and burned when they switched to proof of stake. And looking at the landscape today, it's like there's still miners out there who are married to this because it's their hobby and they have a big investment in it. And honestly, they're super thirsty. There's no good ecosystem for them. They're staying plugged in for pennies a day. I feel their pain. I did a little bit of mining, I got in kind of late, so I caught the tail end of that wave, but I was in it long enough to understand how it works, what the kind of sentiment in the forums were, and really it's for us to open the gates and be able to do payouts because we've got a good ecosystem plan and tokenomics in place. I don't think there's any trouble we're going to have in attracting the existing miner communities, aside from the fact that they think everything's a scam and we got to get through that. So no matter what you show up with, those guys are this is a scam, and just fudding it instantly, before finishing reading whatever it's about. So anyway, have a strategy for that too, have a way to deal with that. But the differentiator for us, I think it is safe to say that it's going to be the ways we leverage the Depin. So our miners are really important. That hardware is really important. We don't need to have 14.2 million GPUs online, but we do need to take advantage of timing. The RTX 5090 releasing in Q1, maybe Q2 with delays. Mentioned it yesterday in the previous video. Like, that timing is really important because we're going to be able to scale up while big tech is kind of like phasing out upgrades and doing these rolling upgrades. Their data centers will be updated slowly over the course of a year or a couple of years, while our miners can run out to Best Buy or whatever your local computer store is, grab a GPU, plug it in, and spin up with our container in no time. Like, they can be on our network earning really quickly, and that's like a huge signal for miners to come over. But anyway, the differentiator here is, like, from other projects I've been keeping an eye on. Like, I really have a lot of respect for a project called Eliza, just because the founders there are all like rebels from big tech projects, and they kind of all came together and saw what each other was working on, and they're like, all right, let's all work together, why not? So it's really exciting. I'm not building with their tools exactly, not yet anyway, because I haven't needed to, but I don't plan to stay an island and stay in my bubble for too long. I just want to see how things go there. They're moving so fast. They're doing the whole like move fast and break things mantra. And I guess you could say that I'm being maybe just a wee bit more strategic about plans. I don't think they're talking Depin at all. Maybe they end up having their dApps and their new features live on our Depin. I mean, anything's possible. I plan to get to know those teams and like be real friendly with them. I admire all of them, so it's like I would love that just as a fanboy. But we'll see where that goes. Nothing's off the table. Let me get back to, I have some notes in front of me here, so let me get back to that. That was a big ramble. Okay, so something that we get to leverage on our Depin that maybe some of those other guys won't have is security. So I'll get into what security means here a bit and what it means for an agent. So agents are typically like set free to do a task, right? They're free range, grass fed, foraging out in the wild, and they're not bots, so they don't work from like very specific programmatic tasks, but you could set them on a whole bunch of tasks that would otherwise be something human to do, like scrape Twitter for certain signals, for certain news, and then decide how to react to it. That's something a bot is not good at, but an agent's really good at. But when you start talking about wallets and funded wallets and how they play with your money, security becomes a really important topic that kind of nobody's talking about today, right? The only subject of security comes in the form of like, well, what happens when they hallucinate? If I'm a brand and I want an agent to represent the brand, how do I know they're not going to tell everybody to go commit suicide, right? So it's touchy for sure, but I've got answers for that. And but security here means something a little different. So when we're talking about a Depin, it's built of miners who have their computers in their home or their shed or their warehouse that they rent, whatever. Depends on the scale. But they have control of the hardware. They can touch it, right? This is not a virtual slice of a server in AWS's data center. This is physical hardware. And so there's an advantage and a disadvantage there. One is that bad actors have access to everything that's happening on that machine. But the way I speak to that is I'm using Proxmox for a clear picture of bare metal. That is what bare metal means in networking is or in IT is like the physical computer, what's in it. The ID, kind of like an inscription ID or a hash, of the CPU, right? Of the GPU. Like, I have a very clear picture of what's in that machine. I know the power of the machine, I know the latency of the RAM, and I know that we're talking to a CPU that hasn't been pulled out since the last time we used that machine. It's everything. We will operate on bare metal because it's operating as expected and has not changed, has not been spoofed, has not been meddled with, right? Those would all be red flags. So, okay, so we understand the bare metal of every system on the network. Great. We're also kind of building our own layer of internet on the internet. And right now I'm using Tailscale for that. And there's some different open source tools that enable this, so maybe it'll change. But I like Tailscale right now. Mainly I like that the founders, they have an admirable philosophy that got them building in the first place. So anyway, what Tailscale does for us is we can start thinking about a layer of communication on the internet that is very private. Think of your VPN, but this is not just for watching Netflix in other countries. We're literally building our own internet on existing cables and pipes that's for agentic use. So we can get rid of all of the all the human mess, like conversations around UI and UX and seed phrases and stuff, because the agents know each other, and we know that the agents are only transacting on our network, on our endpoints, on our bare metal. So this is really powerful because we can forego a lot of things that trip up, let's say, Web3 dApps, right? And the agents can operate in this trustless way, this zero knowledge way, just because they're in the same family, right? This is their dedicated layer, and they get to speak in terms that we don't have to understand, or a hacker doesn't have to understand, right? So that's really special, and that affords us kinds of security that none of the other projects are going to be able to do. And I think at some point they have to think about these things. Sun is in my face, and that's why they might actually play in our sandbox, right? And I guess you could say that once we have these capabilities, which are the pieces that we're plugging into each other, other capabilities start to emerge. I like to think of it as like batteries included. We've built the thing, and now, just by nature of having the thing, some capabilities start to become clear. And one of the cases of having batteries included is P2P. So we got the secure and trustless network. We got agents with wallets operating in this ZK way, right? But you still have people trading on Discords and Telegram groups where you have to be like kind of brave as fuck, right? In like doing OTC and trusting somebody in a channel. That's been happening far too long, I think. And but in the case of agents with wallets, the two humans transacting don't have to know each other, because the agents already do. So the humans aren't actually doing transactions here. The two agents are. That air gap between you and your agent's wallet that you funded, it acts like an escrow. It becomes this trustless layer that takes care of us, right? So, and we just gain this ability by having the infra built. The infra is the differentiator in this case. And we can keep banging on ideas as the winds change and as different use cases kind of bubble to the top. But I can't see a time when like the Depin doesn't become our differentiator because of things like security and because of the trustless nature of it. So that's that, and that's just one example. But pulling on that thread a bit more. This is my brain thinking big. Every now and then I stay so focused on something that when I start thinking big, it's like the deeper end of the pool. Basically, that we can start to look like an accelerator, in that it's almost like a YC of agentic uses, because what we have to offer is GPUs at a wholesale rate, right, that we provide to projects that want to get off the ground or maybe test some assumptions. Maybe there's a bit of money for their time, but it's like a fail fast situation where like you have an idea, build it quickly here. You'll be able to. The costs are low. Maybe we cover your costs, and you get to pass or fail quickly. And if you pass, we keep supporting you, and we're maybe somehow part of your project. And I think it's a beautiful thing, you know. And once I start thinking of this accelerator model, then I start thinking of the areas that are really interesting to me that would benefit from this model. And one of the people who have joined our team unofficially, but she's here, is someone named Yu, who I met in Amsterdam. I actually got paired with her during the hackathon, and it was like we've been working together forever, like old friends, right? And she comes from academia and has direct insights all about DeSci. And DeSci, I don't know if it's been popping up on your radar, everybody, but it's been all over mine. And I'm a believer in some opportunities in DeSci. That's decentralized science. And there's a lot that's broken about the traditional system, and they need a lot of compute. And I'll save that for another video. But basically, DeSci is on my radar. It's not my focus. It'll probably be her focus. And she gets to come here, and with kind of an accelerator model, she gets to just build with tools she wouldn't otherwise have available to her, and try it out and give it a go and draw from her community and her the insights she has direct access to find that kind of fit, that product market fit, right? And agents are new in all sectors, all across the board, but the ones that have the deepest and most painful pain points are probably the ones that'll bubble to the top, and DeSci is one of them, in my opinion. So yeah, but let's focus on, that's future stuff. Let's focus on what's in front of us today, and that is getting this built out, preparing for Launchpunks, and getting the wallet going with Benny, which is in the works right now. That's like a this week thing. So I think, like I mentioned, the next video is going to be a deep dive in something that overlaps with today, which is zero-knowledge agents. I mentioned ZK a bit in this conversation. We'll come back to that. It's a completely made-up term, but it's really fitting. I think I heard Guy from, Coin Bureau mention it, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting term. I think he meant it a totally different way. But anyway, I'll talk about how it's applied here. And I think that covers it for today. I'm going to close with one last thing. Let's call it an FAQ. Maybe I'll do this each video. But there were some questions. There's some stuff in the Discord that I just wanted to shout out here. And so real quick, I want to shout out InvestGeek. I don't know where my manners were. You posted some questions, and I jumped right for the questions. But I ignored like your comments, your kind comments, man. So thank you. I appreciate you. You always, you're here with like not only the good energy, but you show up with really thoughtful questions, and you're the type of person who sometimes you're poking holes in what I say, and I really appreciate it because you're always right. I've noticed that too. So I'm just glad that I usually, if not always, have a response, have some thought through answers for you. So yeah, my bad on just ignoring the compliments in there. Thank you. And then answering Drift and Z, another community member, being the day one guy, love you. You were asking about the game, and I have paper here, paper notes. The game, which also kind of means to me associated content, traits, etc. It's still going to happen. It's still part of this project. Nothing's gotten dumped. I guess you could say the timing of agents is worth a pivot of focus. It's a bit of a mad rush right now, and I don't want to trail behind any other projects. I mean, we're here early with the generative AI stuff, or we were, right? So I would like to be typecast as the AI project doing innovative stuff. And I feel like if we don't do agents now, we're going to end up in a crowded space trying to differentiate later when it's harder to have a voice. So it's maybe worth it to shift the focus a bit. The game has potential to disrupt like Hollywood production because of the content, AI gaming, but those spaces don't have the same sense of urgency, in my opinion. Agents are like, use cases are pretty clear, and there's a lot of blue sky that isn't clear, and there's a lot of people pouring into it. So like, I even feel a little late today, but we're not late. We're early to it, but it won't be the case if I wait a few months. So got to get cracking. Gotta cook. Gotta wear the chef's hat, and so we'll come back to the game and the content and all that a little later. But yeah, that's it, everybody. Thank you for joining me on my coffee walk. And like I said, I'll keep doing these videos every couple of days and do my best to, be in the Discord more than I have been. So, yeah, thanks again to everybody, and peace.